Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and this is for all you new people. I only have one rule. Everybody fights, no one quits. If you don't do your job, I'll kill you myself. Welcome to the Doofnex.
Daly's Doofnex.
Matt, I need a corporal. You're it until you're dead, or I find someone better.
Okay. Well,
you know, we're not even doing jokes anymore. We're just quoting the movie. I mean, that's just us quoting the movies.
Basically.
Like, that's not a joke. That's not anything.
Yeah,
it's nothing.
It's, hey, what are you going to do, Scott?
It's, episode 110. You're just out of intro jokes. Maybe we should just do the intro straight from now on. No funny business in our intros.
Say that like this is the name of the movie and we're here to discuss it in a serious fashion. Okay.
I think that's it. Right. I think that's what we have to do.
Let's do it.
This week on the show, it is another one of our Council of Doof episodes. Matt, what are these things?
Well, once a month, those individuals that donate to us on Patreon at the Doof Warrior level or above our Council of Doof will get to collectively decide on a movie for the community to consider for entrance into the canon. Scott and I, and maybe a guest, not this time, will meet, talk about the movie, and then present our case for why it should or should not be admitted.
Yes, but as always, we are leaving that final decision up to you guys. So stick around, listen to our arguments, and then find a link in the show notes to go cast your vote. Matt, what has the council brought to us today?
This week, the council has put forth the 1997 film Starship Troopers.
Oh boy, I am very excited to talk about this one, Matt. I love this movie, and I haven't talked about it. I haven't watched it like this before, so it's going to be a conversation. I think I have a lot of stuff to talk about. Just
to preface, to go on that for a second, I actually stopped at one point and was like, am I watching some kind of director's cut or extended cut? And no, it was just that I was paying attention to the movie actually.
Yeah.
And noticing things about it. And because there would be things that would happen. I'd be like, I don't remember that. I've seen this movie 10 times. I don't remember that. It's like, well, it's because you weren't really watching it those other times. You weren't, there's a lot more to it than maybe it first seems, I guess.
Sure.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. So we're going to dive deep into that movie. It will be a full spoilers discussion for this 23-year-old movie. So I think that's okay, right? We can spoil this movie.
I think that's okay.
And then after that, we are going to take a ride on the Disney Express, Matt, because just earlier today, a mere hours before we sat down to record, Disney had their investors meeting, and they announced 7,000 new things that are coming out in the future, which is awfully optimistic of them, because I think we're going to be stuck in 2020 forever, like some sort of cruel Groundhog Year thing. But Disney seems to think there's going to be a future, and it will be filled with Star Wars television shows and Marvel television shows.
Yeah. I'm scared and confused, but yes, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. And then we're going to wrap everything up, I think, by doing another Mando check-in. I think this is just what we do now, Matt. We just end the episode talking about the Mandalorian. I don't think we cannot do that anymore.
I'm fine with that.
I've always wanted to do this with you. I've always wanted to have a weekly check-in on a show we're both watching, but you just don't watch enough damn TV, Matt.
I think this is the first time that we've both been watching the same show, possibly since Game of Thrones.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But that is later in the show. First, we've got to talk about these troopers that ride around on starships.
Hey, kid, what's going on? It's war! We're going to war!
Now the youth of tomorrow must travel across the stars to defend our world.
We are a generation commanded by fate to defend humankind.
Everyone fights, no one quits.
We are going in with first wave. You smash the entire area. You kill anything that has more than two legs. You get me? We get you, sir!
So, Matt, talk to me about Starship Troopers.
So this movie is about humans in a fascistic, militaristic future waging war with giant alien bugs.
Oh, yeah. This movie was written by Ed Neumeyer, based on the novel of the same name by Robert Heinlein, and then, of course, directed by the incomparable Paul Verhoeven. This movie came out in 1997, as you have already said, Matt. So we were both 12 years old when this movie came out. And I think you can say that we were in the perfect position to completely miss everything this movie was doing.
Absolutely.
At 12 years old.
Perfectly, yes.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this is I don't want to spend this episode talking about how this movie is clearly a satire and it's clearly a fascist society that we're not supposed to be celebrating. Like that, I feel like everyone does that with this movie.
Yeah, everyone does that, and usually with the tone of like, "Hey, did you know that it's actually a satire?" Yes, it's obviously a satire.
We're not so obvious.
I think we almost agreed implicitly without even, like, we just already agreed when we talked about this that we just want to talk about the fact that it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and we'll talk about the fact that it's a satire, obviously, but it's such a functional movie in so many ways that, like, when you think satire, you usually think like, well, it's silly, it's light, it's not taking the premise seriously. It, breaks the fourth wall, things like this you expect in a satire. This movie has very few moments where it winks at you, almost exclusively confined to like the news broadcast interludes, actually.
Yeah.
Everything else is played very, very seriously and taking the characters and their own storyline seriously, being very economical with the storytelling. The battles are actually, fun and good. And it keeps a good pace despite being kind of a complicated, epic hero's journey type story.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is if you get right down to it, the key to what I would call a successful satire is that the story, the frame that you're laying the satire on, actually has to be real and it has to be good. And if you get so wound up in just like portraying your satirical message that you lose all the rest of the stuff, it completely falls apart. And one of the reasons why this movie is so good is because it is a very standard, but extremely well executed science fiction war movie. And it's just fun. It really is fun. And you can say it's fun while completely acknowledging that the society that these people live in is terrifying and awful. But hey, I like Johnny Rico.
Yeah.
I think he's a cool guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's, God, it gives you a lot of complicated feelings, right? I agree. Sure. I agree completely on what you said about satire needing to be resting on a solid story, and I think also it needs to be resting on very solid characters in particular. Like it, reminds me of, I love all of the Christopher Guest comedic, satirical. They get called mockumentaries. Apparently, Christopher Guest doesn't like the term mockumentaries, but whatever.
He doesn't? I didn't know that.
Apparently, yeah, like those work to the extent that the actors are really taking seriously the idea of their character. Like if their character is a ridiculous, laughable human being, the actor has to be portraying that in a very serious and consistent way. Sure. Like they can't just, I'm going to take just a completely undeserved broadside at Will Ferrell, and just because he's a comedian who often just kind of becomes silly, whereas like in a good satire, there's never just like and then everyone became silly and didn't act like their character anymore. And that's what this movie does. Every actor is portraying their character very seriously as if they're in a serious movie, and that's why the satire works, like you said.
Yeah, totally. And it is interesting because it is a list of actors that, Neil Patrick Harris and Michael Ironside aside, it's not like the who's who of incredible acting performances, but they all do a really good job here. I think Johnny Rico is the character that Casper Van Dien was born to play. It's just, he just has the, and I don't know, like this is kind of a chicken and egg situation because I was so young when this movie came out, but like he has the chiseled feature of what I think military man, right? Like just
Yeah.
the shape of his face and
Yeah.
like just
The
his
jaw.
chin.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just that is military person, you know. It's just like
Yeah.
that is just like the most and it's just, it looks perfect. I think like 6 times while I was watching this movie, I was just looking at his jaw and being like, look at how fucking chiseled this guy is. Like it's perfect. It's perfect.
Uh-huh.
And he plays that character. And look, he's not the best actor in the world, and Denise Richards also not the best actress in the world. But they play these characters super well. Casper Van Dien plays Johnny Rico as this idiot who is quick to anger, like gets pissed off, and he's a child. He really is a child. And I think that's so important for what the movie actually is doing, is that he's in over his head. He's kind of bouncing from idea to idea. He doesn't know what to do with himself. And he follows this train that leads him into this complete indoctrination into this horrible society.
Yeah, right. I like how toward the beginning of the movie it makes the point of showing that he doesn't know what he wants out of life. The only person sort of showing him a pathway is the guy who, you know, kind of romanticizes the idea of military service, and you know, and he literally chooses to join the military for a girl, right? Which is a very kind of childish and immature and nonsensical reason to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, it's not actually the story of this man maturing in a way that's good, right? Like he does become a leader, but he becomes a leader because everybody above him dies.
Yeah. And all he does is ape what the leaders before him that died do.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing remarkable about Rico.
Yes.
Except that he's not dead.
And he has moves.
Sure.
he has moves. That's
he can do a flip.
He can do a flip, but which is basically a joke, right? It's like he learned he's good at football, and thus he's slightly better at killing the aliens, and thus he rises through the ranks and becomes like not even a platoon, like a whole battalion or whatever commander. And it's just like, this is the machine. We see the new round of recruits come in at the end. Rico is going to lead them bravely into battle and get cut in half at some point, and then somebody else is going to replace him. It's just a dumb kid who you basically feel sorry for, getting manipulated and shuffled into this meat grinder, and like you see systematically every young character who enters at the beginning of the movie is sitting in the chairs of the superiors who died horribly in the course of the movie by the end. Waiting for their turn to die horribly.
Yeah, it's perfect. And I think, you know, when I was younger, I really caught on to the fact that, you know, I thought it was so cool that Rico becomes the leader of the Roughnecks and gives the same speech that Ratchek gave, right? He gives the one I said at the beginning of this thing, like, if you don't do your job, I'll kill you myself. And then welcome to the Roughnecks, Rico's Roughnecks. And you're like, fuck yeah. Uh-huh. And I think it's so clever because what it's doing is using one of the absolutely fundamental truisms of storytelling, is that repetition draws your attention. When you repeat beats, you draw people are very good at pattern matching, right? So when you use repeated beats in storytelling, people catch on to that pattern matching very well. And what it's actually doing is not just this cool storytelling structure of repeating beats. It's showing how he has just become the new Ratchek. And in every, like, he's not Johnny Rico anymore. He's just this thing, this citizen, this commander of this group, and that's it. And he didn't even want it. Like, that's the thing I love about, like, the movie opens with them sitting in class, and Ratchek is like going on and on about, you know, how they defeated the evil of democracy and the strong veterans. Basically, they don't say it outright, but it seems like there was just, at one point there was a military coup, and the military just seized control of the government and then reformatted under this fascist regime. And that's just what they've been living under for 100 years. I'm not sure how much, but like, all while he's giving this speech. And like, if you're paying attention to what Ratchek is saying and you're a person that lives right now, you're probably horrified. But Rico's drawing a picture of Carmen on his notebook, on his laptop, whatever, his iPad of 1997. So he's not even really listening to it. he's been indoctrinated with the stuff, but like Ratchek says, he's just repeating the words out of the textbook. He doesn't actually know what they mean or care what they mean. And that doesn't change by the end of it. It's not like he's learned what being a citizen is, quote unquote. He says he's learned it, right? Like the speech when Dizzy dies is, Dizzy was my friend. She was a soldier, but most importantly, she was a citizen of the Federation.
Uh-huh.
And that just cracks me up.
I think that's really fascinating, and this is one of those things that's only occurring to me now that we're talking about it. But like, I see that sort of thing as an indication of like, he is, you know, he's beginning to take seriously the kind of rhetoric that justifies the life choices that he's made. Like,
Sure.
Like maybe he gets cut in half. On the other hand, maybe he gets injured and then retires and becomes a teacher.
Yeah.
And then, you know, indoctrinates the next generation of kids by seeming like a grizzled badass who, you know, he seems to have some vision in his life, because that's, you know, I mean, I can admit to kind of having an admiration for military people. I don't even necessarily, I'm not even necessarily going to say like that's intrinsically bad. Like, that is intrinsically a negative thing to have admiration for someone who, you know, sacrificed for your safety in the abstract and all these things. But like that's the thing is like, but Matt, you're using the rhetoric of the military industrial complex. It's like, okay, yeah, it's complicated though. I don't know.
Well, yeah,
I don't know how to parse through this necessarily. It's the movie is taking a direct shot at the idea that young people are vulnerable to exactly that kind of thing, and they get sucked into it. In reality, they're just being used as fodder for some cynical purpose by Neil Patrick Harris sitting in an office building somewhere.
Yeah, and he even says it too while wearing a fucking SS uniform.
Yeah.
He tells them that they're just fodder. He tells Rico that he sent his platoon to Planet P knowing that there was a low probability of survival in that mission, and he didn't care. Like, it's the whole thing, and I think this is actually a Verhoeven quote. I don't remember it exactly, but like, he wanted to construct the society to make this a functional society that works. People are successful. Like, there's technology, there's you know, even happiness in some sort. But the only thing the society is able to turn all of its talent towards is killing bugs.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all they can do. Like, Neil Patrick Harris's character is probably one of the smartest, most powerful people in the world. And what's he doing? He's killing these bugs that probably would have just fucking left him alone if they didn't keep going to their side of the galaxy.
Yeah, they had to cross the galaxy to find the bugs to kill. Yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah, I like that idea because one thing that I always thought was interesting about the movie is it shows Rico's parents, and they're obviously very wealthy.
Yes.
And it's like, and they're not citizens. So it's like, oh, so you don't even need to be a citizen. Like, it's not like Rico is like, he comes from poverty and he's like, well, if I become a citizen, then I will, be able to make something of myself. And it's like, no, he's set. He's already set. He doesn't need to do this at all. I thought that was really interesting because it's like, I think it speaks to what you were just saying about this idea that like, it is a stable, functional society, but the only arena in the society where you're really like respected is going to kill bugs.
Yeah, well, and just constant violence and fighting. Like, I think as a teenage boy, like the number of times when characters like just start punching each other for no reason was much less of a, oh wow, that's fucked up thing to me as like a pubescent dude. You're just like, yeah, look at these men fighting each other.
Yeah, I assume that happens. Yeah, right.
Yeah. This is what the military is like. Everyone, right? Anytime you get mad at someone, you just punch each other, right? Yeah, that's what happens. No, it's just a completely violence based society in every way. Like just what Ratchek says at the beginning. Like violence is the only way to solve problems. Is what he directly says. That's the only way to do it. And I think to me, the scene that spoke most to me was actually the scene that spoke most to me as a 13-year-old boy. It was the shower scene for completely different reasons.
I was like, are you going to say that? Okay. Yes.
But no,
Excellent.
I mean, in the shower scene is when every one of our characters outlines their reason for becoming a citizen, right? And you have this woman who wants to be a politician. You have this woman who wants to have babies, and being a citizen allows you to get the pass to because you have to apply to have children in this future. And then you have the guy who got into Harvard but can't pay for it, and so he becomes a citizen to pay for it, which is in our society an exact path for a lot of people that they cannot afford college, and so they join the army because the army will pay for some of their school if they join up for a certain amount of time. That is true today, right? And I loved in that scene where when he says that, there's this really brief cut. Verhoeven cuts to Rico for just like a second for him to take that in, because Rico's a guy here who's standing here who could have gotten into Harvard, who had the money to get into Harvard and chose not to for a dumb reason. And here's this guy who dies, by the way, this character that wanted to go to Harvard, got in but couldn't pay for it. He dies, and Rico, the kid who was here because his hot girlfriend was here, and he was emasculated by a guy named Xander, gets to live and go on. And it's just depressing. Like every one of those people died, right? Like the woman who wanted babies, dead. The woman who wanted to become a politician,
I think
dead.
she washed out because she killed the guy.
Oh
right?
yeah. She washed out. You're right. Yeah.
Which
So
she's also like traumatized now though. So
Yep. I think the farmer is the guy that got shot. The journalist dead. You know, like all these people that had these goals beyond the military, these dreams beyond the citizenship that just being a citizen would have granted them, are brutally killed. And who's left? The career ones, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what the system makes you into. It grinds you up, and if you don't, you're either going to become career or you're going to die.
That's really interesting. You reminded me of at least one of the characters who just demonstrates this enormous hatred of the bugs.
Yeah.
And Rico counts as one of them, but it's like, it's so interesting because it's like, they're not worthy of hatred. They're bugs. Like they're
just big bugs.
They're just big bugs. Like we really, the brain bugs are smart, and the movie sort of hints that they're actually just trying to defend themselves. Yeah. The other kinds of bugs are just bugs. Like like the idea that you're going to sacrifice your life to kill bugs is so demeaning, right? Mm-hmm. And it makes them seem it's almost a like a satire on the idea, on the notion of like, I'm going to die taking down the Nazis or whatever. It's like is that a worthy way to frame that? Like you're gonna you're I don't know. It's the ridiculousness of it becomes much more apparent when it's bugs. Yeah. Right. That's one of the elements of the satire, obviously.
Absolutely. They're just fucking bugs. That's it. That's all they are. They're just stupid bugs. And yeah, they're smarter than we think they are. They're their own species. They're doing their own thing. They're hanging out on their own planet. I think the thing I didn't realize until this viewing, that it's actually the Mormons' fault. It's all the Mormons' fault. Did you see that part where it was the Mormon encampment that got completely wrecked? And so it's all their fault.
Yeah.
They pissed off the bugs.
Was it because they landed on Klendathu or
they set up, I don't know if it was on Klendathu itself. It was in the quarantine zone. They were going on a pilgrimage, and they all died. I don't know. Like, obviously it's not, I was joking. Obviously, like, the Federation has been slowly encroaching upon this land forever, right? And I mean, that's the thing, is like, we don't actually see outside of the bugs what kind, like, it doesn't seem like the Earth is in this constant war. Like, this is a totally military society, right? Every part of the citizenship side of the society is militaristic, but we don't see a war happening until the bugs come. So it's like they were looking for this. This is the kind of thing that a society like this needs to continue to operate. It needs to be able to feed these people to the machine, and so it needs a war to do that. So, like, you could tell me that, like, the writer thought in the back of his head that actually they directly provoked this attack, or they knew it was like like the old Pearl Harbor conspiracy theories, right? Where it's like they knew it was coming and they let it happen to provoke war.
Yeah.
You could tell me that actually happened in the story and they just didn't put it textually, and I would totally believe you.
Sure. I mean, I think I've read theories along those lines that like it's just not plausible. Like it's not physically plausible that they could have launched an asteroid from, you know, the other side of the galaxy to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely impossible. And so it's like, yeah, well, maybe that didn't happen. Maybe that was set up, right? And the book doesn't the movie doesn't exactly hint at it, but it leaves enough blank space where you're like, yeah, maybe, you know, it might as well have, right?
Sure.
What you just said about the Mormons is really interesting because I remember they basically frame the Mormons as like Mormon, you know, radical extremists or something. They use that kind of phrase. You remember exactly what phrase it is?
I don't remember exactly, but
some kind of phrase like that. And now I'm thinking like, well, maybe it's like the kind of social uniformity, especially for a group like the Mormons who really, you know, believe that they need to have more children, is so crushing that like the you know, maybe there's lots of religious groups and other ideological groups that are just fleeing from this fascist government, you know, kind of into the wilds outside of their jurisdiction. And of course the fascist government, you know, doesn't tolerate them and maybe is even hunting them actively.
Sure. They literally went there to hide because it's easier to hide in there. Yeah, I could believe it. I mean, it's really the only mention of religion at all in this story, right? The religion of the society is the state, is the Federation. So they don't really mention any kind of religious stuff. It's so I think you're onto something there. I also saw something interesting. Like someone asked Casper Van Dien why this person living in Buenos Aires, Argentina, is like blonde haired, blue eyed, and he basically said like, well, I'm probably just the descendant of one of the Nazis that hit out there after World War II, which is just perfect.
That's such a good answer. Yeah,
it is.
Right. I mean, you I mean, you can basically assume like, well, this is a period of history where presumably the whole landscape of like where people are living has been reshaped by just this you know, this totalitarian force, which like he's obviously of the upper class, right? Like almost everyone in his high school is also white. Mm-hmm. This is probably just like, this is the upper class now.
I mean, it does. The interesting thing is that I think it does paint a version of society that, at least gender inequality doesn't seem to exist. Like I think it tries to encapsulate that by like they're all living in the same bunk, they're all taking the same showers, all the recruits are treated the same. Like it seems like they're just meat, and so it doesn't matter whether you're girl meat or boy meat. It's like, I think it's so funny that Verhoeven like said, yeah, okay, we're going to depict the society as gender equal, but like that's not going to make you want to live there.
Yeah, I think that's a smart thing to do with satire and with social criticism in general. Is like it's tempting when you're trying to say like, you know, I'm critiquing fascism with my film, and so I'm going to show in my film that their society is terrible and that everyone's miserable. It's like, well, no, show you what you want to show is the specific things that are bad about fascism. You don't like specifically and not just throwing a bunch of other bad stuff into the pot to make it seem bad. Like there's plenty bad about living in a fascist state, even if it's a very wealthy fascist state. The problem is that it's fascist. The problem isn't that it's miserable and poor, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is a very intelligent thing to do. And I mean, honestly, you see a lot of kind of dystopian literature do this wrong because they just sort of make their society really terrible, and then they try to say like, it's because it's this system that I don't like. And you're like, okay, but you're the writer. You made it that way. Obviously, it's not a very sharp critique that way.
And of course, I think the risk there is that stupid 12-year-olds like me don't get it. But I think that's also okay. Like, I think it's okay when not everyone that watches your movie like catches on to what you're doing with it. I think that actually shows it's functional satire, right? Because you're kind of critiquing the exact kind of mindset like that a white middle class guy like me goes to sit into this movie and is like, yeah, and I don't realize until I'm a little older that I'm like, oh, oh, those things are bad, right? I mean, it shows how some of these opinions, like you were talking about with like our worship at the military and our great respect we show for our troops, which I don't think is inherently a bad thing, like you're saying, but that is part of the same system that leads you to sit in this movie and be like, yeah, Rico's a badass, and look, he's in charge now, and all of our three friends are back together again, and they're in charge of everything now. Yay, they won the game. I think that's definitely the reaction I had walking out of this movie when I saw it as a kid. And I don't think it's inherently bad that I had that reaction. Like, I don't think it makes the satire a failure, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that maybe this is going too far, but I think that the movie does a thing where toward the end, everyone's dying. Cameron gets captured and stabbed, and her boyfriend gets stabbed in the head, and everyone's dying and being maimed, and it's horrible. And then there's like a point where it's like, and then suddenly everything picks up, and the day is saved, like, very rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this, the psychological effect of all that horrible shit that happened to them actually sticks with you. And like, I remember being a kid and kind of having, fairly ambivalent feelings about, like, it wasn't like I wanted to go play, in the way that you will like go home and, act out things. Like, I didn't want to necessarily go home and like play bug killing Marine or whatever, because it seemed like the point is like, this is a horror movie and you're going to get brutally massacred. And like the cheerful switch at the end to like, oh, and then they win and then they're all in charge now, that didn't really feel like that's what would actually happen to you if you were there. I don't know if does any of this register with you at all?
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I think it is interesting that the conclusion of the movie is that we catch the brain bug and therefore we're going to learn about them and beat them. But that is not something that any of our protagonists participate in at all. That is completely separate from what they're going through. So it does make the climax of the film feel different and weird. And you mean, yeah, like, our characters just went through this horrible thing. One of the guys died to save the other ones. And then it's like, oh, we got the brain, and it's your drill sergeant who busted himself down to private just so he could go fight in this war, because that was the most important thing to him. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Forgot about the drill sergeant.
Yeah.
All the scenes where he just horribly maims someone to make a point.
Yeah.
So that's yeah. I mean, that's wonderful satire. Stabs the guy through the hand, breaks the guy's arm.
Like the recurring medic,
yeah,
in the middle of this boot camp,
which is a wonderful. Oh my god, it is a 3-beat. The first time he breaks the guy's arm on purpose, and then calls for medic. The second time he stabs the guy through the hand, then calls for medic. The third time, the guy gets his head blown off in the training exercise, and then Rico, with a shocked expression, calls medic.
Yep.
You're like, it's not gonna help Rico.
No, he just got his head exploded.
It's hilarious.
I also like when Dizzy shows up at the boot camp and then immediately challenges the drill sergeant, and he kicks her ass, and then the next time you see her, she's got the biggest fucking bruise ever, like all over her face and neck, where he just like slammed his knee down on her and just pushed her into the dirt for a ridiculous amount of time. It's just like, what the fuck? What is wrong with this place?
Yeah.
It's awful. Right. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about Dizzy, though. We did this thing, Matt, where we said we weren't going to talk about the fact that this is a satire, and then we spent 30 minutes talking about that fact.
It's just the satire nature is inextricable from the good movie nature, unfortunately.
Sure. But I mean, I do want to talk about this love triangle we have here. So we have this love triangle that's like brought up in the very beginning, where we have our boy Johnny Rico, and he's in love with Denise Richards Carmen, who, God, when I was a teenager, she was just like the most beautiful woman on the planet to me. And then we have Dizzy Flores, played by Dina Meyer, who is clearly in love with Rico. And what I love about this is it's watching it at 35. It is so transparently obvious that Carmen doesn't really like Rico at all. I mean, she likes him, but it's like a high school, to her, it's like a high school relationship.
Yeah.
And she's just like assuming that this is going to just go away as soon as we go our separate ways.
She's sort of flattered that this attractive guy is into her, but she's not really that into him. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said this to you over text earlier today, but like Denise Richards, I don't think she's that good of an actress. I think she delivers a lot of flat lines a lot of the time, but her best performance ever is when Johnny Rico says, "I love you," and Carmen is kind of pressured into saying it back. And she just gives this entirely flat, do not believe it at all performance where she's just like, "I love you." It's just like, I don't believe you for a second. You don't. You don't at all. It's amazing because like the teenage me was really bummed that Rico didn't get to be with Carmen because because it's Denise Richards and I thought she was beautiful. But like the adult me is like, no, Dizzy rules actually, and I'm so much happier that they got to be together. Except then she dies horribly.
Yeah. Right, she dies horribly, which again goes to this idea of like the ending of the movie is actually all the people you like dying. Because I think I've always liked Dizzy more and thought that Rico was a fool for ignoring her.
I think that's the attitude I should have had, but my eyes got in my way. Not that Dina Meyer is not a beautiful woman; she very much is. But I don't know. I just had a big thing for Denise Richards for a while there.
Yes, it's understandable. The love triangle, it works. I mean, then of course the pilot dude comes into the picture, and there's it's really a very kind of melodramatic soap opera kind of thing, but it serves its function. I think that I actually I seem to have actually watched the movie for the first time, and I noticed a lot more detail of like, oh, that like they just every character has their thing that like even the pilot guy who's kind of her interest, who's Carmen's interest.
Xander is his name.
Xander, he's a character, right? He's not just like, and then we insert Guy to be distraction for Carmen. He has his own things that he's after, his own ambitions, and he actually gets a noble sacrifice there at the end. Like it's all good. It's
very functional, and I mean that in the best possible way. Mm-hmm. Like it just works. It just works really well.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so many little bits of this movie that work really well. Like I even love just like the idea of the scene where she backs the starship out of the hangar and everyone's super nervous about it. It's like that's just a great little scene. I don't have any further point with that, really. It's just a great little scene. It's very well executed. The special effects work. The way it's shot is perfect.
Yeah. I mean, and there are all kinds of that. I think the scene on Planet P when they're in that encampment, that fort, and it's being invaded by the bugs is like one of the coolest fights ever. Like just the way it's constructed, the way you see the bugs, like the pile of dead bugs pile up to where the other ones are just walking over the corpses of the other ones, and then the flying ones come in and start like taking people out, and then the big one pops up in the middle. It's just a wonderfully constructed action sequence that just felt like a lot of fun to me. I mean, it's horrifying. Like I will never forget, it burned into my retinas is when the retreat is ordered and everyone's retreating, and there's one guy who's like about to jump off the battlements, and he jumps into the air, and as he jumps into the air, the bug like grabs him and impales him. And I'm just like, oh dude, you were so close. You were so close.
Yeah, there's the movie's really good at emphasizing the horror of these giant bugs, like the flying one that catches the guy and carries him away, and then the flying ones will like swoop down and just smoothly cut people's heads off.
Hey, about that flying one though, that took the radio guy. I get the whole like I'm putting my person who's suffering out of his misery, but like, you maybe shoot the bug too. Like he didn't shoot the bug.
I mean, I think that's yet more of the ridiculousness. Like no, I mean, I think really like the point is to die honorably before the point is to actually win the war and kill the bugs, maybe.
Sure.
Because like the dude who does that, the commander, he gets his legs bit off, and then he's like, Rico, kill me,
Yeah.
And it's like, but it's just your legs. Like the drop ship's right there. They could just carry you, and then Rico kills him. And it's like, yeah, but okay, all right.
No, this is supposed to be the way to do it. I think you're right. This is the society that goes out fighting, and that's the most important thing to them. And that is why, like, the thing ends. The thing at the end is like we're taking the fight to them. We have new weapons. We're going to win. And it's like, do you want to win though? Like, you want to keep fighting. Like your entire organization requires this to be a continual war, and so you're just going to keep going. It's just going to keep going. Like, I love that the movie does not end on a victory in the war, right? They didn't win the war. Like, that's not what the movie's about. The war is going to go on forever because the society needs the war.
Right. Who knows how many planets these things have? And
I mean, maybe if they do defeat the bugs, they'll find something else. They'll find something else to fight.
Yeah. I mean, you can go the Weyland Yutani direction and imagine that maybe these bugs are like a bioweapon that the government has actually created.
Sure.
Did you? This is yet another thing where I'm like, I don't know if I'm making this up or if this is really in there, but like the scene where Neil Patrick Harris is like doing the TV broadcast, and he's like, you can take the bugs down really easily if you just shoot the nerve cluster, and then he like, casually shoots a few bullets at the big warrior bug, and it like dies immediately. And then pretty soon after that scene is the next time when there's a major battle. And then you see that it takes like 8 people just like emptying their weapons into one of these bugs to take one of them down. Yeah. And you're like, oh, so, and again, this is the first time that this kind of occurred to me, but I was like, oh, were they trying to make it seem like the bugs are more fragile than they actually are to make it, to kind of amp up the soldiers' sense that they might win?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because that I don't know, I thought that was interesting this time, because it's like once they actually start fighting the bugs, you're like, oh, these are incredibly tough to kill, actually.
Yeah, they're so ineffective. It's hilarious. Yeah, that's one of the huge differences. And I've never read the whole book. I read about half of it, so I've never read this complete book. But I know in the book, the Starship Troopers are these like one-man armies where they have these amazing exosuits that allow them to like hurtle through the air, and they've got these incredible weapons that are super effective. And that is, of course, not what this movie is at all. It's just hilarious to see how incredibly ineffective they are against these things. That, yeah, even when they're winning in the latter half of the movie, when they're like going through the movies and mopping up after the bombing raid comes through, it's still like 30 of them surrounding 2 bugs and like slowly forcing them back. And that's it. Yeah, these it makes these weapons look so shitty. They're so ineffective. They just don't seem to do anything.
Yeah. There's like a couple times when you see they have the shoulder mounted nuclear rockets, but it's like they just don't use them that effectively. And it kind of indicates maybe the infantry level tactics are not, very good.
They're not necessary. Like, they have fucking space things and jets that have nukes on them. Like, you're not trying to inhabit this planet, right? Like, if you really just want to kill all these fucking bugs, you can just drop a bunch of nukes, which is what they do. Yeah, but
why didn't they start with that, right? That's what's so confusing.
Yeah, because that's not because the society values the infantry. It values the warriors on the ground doing the fighting. It doesn't matter if it's effective or not. And yes, they will still like change tactics when their ego is bruised. But like, I don't understand why they needed to even send a platoon out there to wipe up after they dropped the bombers in. Like, okay, why? Yeah. Like, if you just, okay, so we wiped them all out. Whether we dropped a bunch of nukes on the planet, and I don't see any bugs. Oh wait, some bugs are back. Okay, let's do it again. Yeah, like it's not functional for a society with the kind of technology they have to still have mobile infantry. It just doesn't seem to be needed.
No, I think that's that's part of the point. But
yeah.
I think that's totally accurate. I mean, I think capturing the brain bug is like one mission where you could actually be like, yeah, you need people on the ground with guns for this specific mission, but the idea that you're just going to drop ship, tens of thousands of troops,
hundreds of 300,000 troops die on Klendathu.
300,000 troops. Oh, and yeah. So how many did they drop if that many died, right? Yeah.
Right.
Huge, enormous, ridiculous number of people. It's like, okay, it's just the complete disregard for life, which is, and I think that's really interesting because it's like the leadership is all military people.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a few scenes of like the leadership, right? And they're all bedecked in their uniforms that make them look like Banana Republic dictators.
Yeah.
Just like ridiculously giant epaulets on their shoulders and stuff. And it's like, well, naively you might think like, well, if the leaders are military people, the leaders are the kind of people who will respect the troops and they won't just waste lives. And and what we see in the movie is like, nope, that's not true. I mean, there's nothing, these are career military people. We don't really know who they are, where they came from, first of all. But yeah, I mean, the point is that no, they don't have any particular regard for the troops any more than any other sort of government in history has had any special level of regard for foot soldiers. They're just treated as cannon fodder. They always have been in every culture. Well, it wasn't any different in the actual fascist governments of the 20th century.
Yeah. In fact, I mean, the only really leadership cast member of the military we get a lot of interaction with is that general on Planet P who hides himself in a freezer and is a complete like feckless coward and it dies so horribly that two of the grunts, Jake Busey's character and Casper Van Dien, kind of just chuckle as the giant bug lands on him, killing him, and just like, okay, and then they just go on doing their shit. Yeah,
he deserved that.
Mm-hmm.
I love Jake Busey in this movie.
He's really good, right? He's so funny. I think the most hilarious part of the movie to me is when he's playing his space violin and like Dizzy and Rico are dancing and he's like standing between them, looking at them seductively playing the space violin.
Yeah, he's great. He's such a great, like, squad member 02 character, right? He's just perfectly lovable. He dies, right? I forget.
No, I think he lives. I think he makes it.
I don't remember now.
But I love, like, he wanted to be the squad leader, right? He was the one that was joining.
Yeah.
He was career all the way, and he sucks at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is Johnny Rico's big moment in the movie, right? This is what proves that he's got what it takes to be a leader. They're on Klendathu. The bugs are charging for them, and someone turns to Jake Busey's Ace and says, "Ace, what do we do?" And he goes, I don't know. And then Rico says, kill him all.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him a good squad leader, is he just shoot the bad guy. Just shoot him.
That's so great. Yeah. Because that's what's demanded. It's not intelligence, not tactics. It's just like willingness to violence.
Yeah.
Especially in the face of danger, which eventually is going to get you killed. 100% of the time. But
yeah, I know there are sequels to this movie. I have not seen either of them. I have zero interest in seeing them, but like, I don't see Johnny Rico living much longer. The system is not designed for any of these people to live for a very long time, except for maybe Neil Patrick Harris's character, as he is unlocking the secrets of human mind control.
Yeah,
which is definitely coming.
Yeah, just totally, expanding the level of control that this society is capable of.
Yeah, I mean, just think of how easier it'll be to get grunts when you don't even have to indoctrinate them. You just make them think that they want to do it, which is like, it's so much easier to just put the thought of joining mobile infantry in Casper Van Dien's head instead of having to talk to him for 4 years as a teacher.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much easier.
Yeah.
So much more efficient.
Is there a Ghostbusters-esque joke when he's doing the card flipping test on Rico, where like it's kind of, I feel this way every time I watch the movie, where I'm like, wait, did Rico just guess the card right? And then and then Doogie Howser pretended that he didn't.
No, I think he's just getting it wrong.
He's just getting it wrong. Okay, because
I think he's just getting it wrong.
Because it seems like he flips a card over and it's like a 7 of spades or whatever, and I'm like, wait, that's what he said. But I don't know. I never rewind and check whether I actually was right, and so yeah, I don't know.
No, I think he's just really sucky at it because there's nothing quote unquote special about him, right? He's the perfect grunt.
Yeah, and Doogie Howser is not only a genius, but a psychic genius.
Yeah. And
with a ferret.
He's as at the end of the movie, he's the upper echelon of military intelligence. He's one of the highest ranking people in the military, wearing his clearly SS uniform. God, it's perfect. It really is wonderful.
He looks like haunted, like he's not sleeping.
The way they did his makeup, like he looks tired. He looks a little gaunt. Like he's whiter. Like this has not been good for him at all. He's not doing well.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was this like happy-go-lucky, lighthearted fella in school, and now he's like, gaunt, like you said.
Yeah. Jeez. What a movie, huh? What a movie.
Yes.
Can we talk about the special effects for a little bit?
Absolutely. Because
they're really fucking good for 1997. They look amazing. I watched this in 4K today, and it looks good.
Yeah, it does. Can't really complain about any part of it. The bugs look good. They seamlessly integrate the practical and the digital where necessary, which happens a lot where, a bug has to slice somebody in half or stab somebody. That's clearly a big practical piece of equipment coming into this, into the scene usually. And it's always, it always works like 100% of the time. I can't think of any shots in this movie where I'm like, I thought that was fake. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could argue the textures of the bug are a little glossy. Like it's still definitely 90s CGI, but I think it holds up better than a lot of 90s CGI holds up these days, I think.
Yeah.
And they used practical effects in some places, right? Like some of the bugs are practical. The sucking the brains out scene is so good. That's all practical. That's just such a gnarly look to it when Xander gets his brain sucked out. I really like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's horrifying. It's very effective.
Yeah, and it's horrifying and kind of like the movie's kind of camp, right? If there's a little bit of camp going on here, like when just hearing Michael Ironside say they sucked his brains out, it's just like it makes me giggle a little bit. It's silly, like this idea that the way the brain bug learns about humanity is by taking the literal organ out of its head, and then what does it do? Does it read it as it digests? Like, how does that work?
It's a brain bug. But no, once again, the reason it works is that the idea is silly, but the way it's executed in the scene is perfectly straight-faced.
100%. Yeah.
It's so great.
It's all great. I fucking love this movie, man. I actually, I came into this movie kind of expecting to be like, I wonder if this is the first one I'm going to vote no on, because I was kind of being like, okay, like I know it's good, right? And I know it's good satire, but like, is it really a great movie? Is it really like really great? And the answer to that question was yeah. I love this movie.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like I said, I've watched this movie a bunch of times, and I just thought it was like, oh yeah, it's an okay action movie, and like I knew it was a satire. I got it. I'd watched it and been like, yeah. Obviously, there's the newsreels where you've got. I mean, the newsreels are hilarious. Let's talk about the newsreels for a second.
Yeah, sure.
Just to finish my thought before we do that. But I never appreciated that, like the satire runs kind of through everything, and the political commentary runs through everything, right? Not just the obvious, winking at the camera moments. That's not what makes it a satire. What makes it a satire, what makes it a piece of social criticism is really everything about it. But yeah, the newsreels, I mean, this time my favorite one was the woman and the idiot man debating over whether it was possible that the bugs could have some form of intelligence. And
he's
frankly,
so angry.
I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive. And then she like kicks him because he won't stop talking. And I died. It was so good.
It's so good. I mean, my favorite will always be the children playing with the giant rifle and like tugging on it and pulling back and forth, trying to like, it's my turn to play with the giant killer rifle. That will always be my favorite because it's just so obviously horrifying at that point. Like I think these things are the part where Verhoeven really felt like he could go ham with the satire. And it's great because like you can see a version of the movie where the entire movie is just those "do you want to know more" newsreel scenes, and it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be an enjoyable experience. And I think he recognizes that, oh wait, I have to tell a story, but I can sprinkle these things in because it's entertaining.
Yeah. On the whole, though, very restrained. I mean, Verhoeven kind of does a similar thing, I think, in RoboCop, where the movie is much more serious, and then like anytime you see what's on TV, you're just like, oh, this is insane.
Mm-hmm.
This is ridiculous, right?
Yeah. So that's a question that I actually want to ask you here. Which of these movies is better? Is this better than RoboCop?
You know, I honestly think I have to watch RoboCop again with this same level of attention, because so if you'd asked me a week ago, I would have said RoboCop is a better movie than Starship Troopers. I'm not sure if I believe that anymore, actually. I think this might be a better movie than RoboCop because, I mean, I think this is doing a lot more than RoboCop is. Of course, I might watch RoboCop again and be like, oh, RoboCop's doing way more than I realized or than I remembered. I mean, I think, honestly, I just need to kind of revisit Verhoeven and actually pay attention with my adult brain instead of my teenage wanting to watch robots and aliens shoot each other brain.
I would love to do a deconstructing Verhoeven. I think he's done a lot of really interesting things.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I got to see RoboCop. So RoboCop was filmed in Dallas. I don't know if you knew that, where I live.
Cool.
And like the big building, the company building, the bottom of it is Dallas City Hall. Like that's just what the City Hall looks like at the bottom, and then they just made a skyscraper off the top of it. And so I watched RoboCop there. There was an Alamo Drafthouse event there in which Peter Weller showed up, and like they interviewed him, and it was just really incredibly cool experience. So I have a very warm spot in my heart for RoboCop. So I don't know if I'd want to say no, Starship Troopers is better. I think they're a great like double feature. Both of these movies, really, really great.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would never make someone choose between them. I'd just be like, yeah, watch that, watch Total Recall, watch all those classic Verhoeven movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about RoboCop is that like, I wonder if Verhoeven felt like his satire was a little too nuanced. Like the irony of RoboCop is that the reason why it became huge and popular is because like little kids fell in love with RoboCop, and then like they made a whole cartoon show, and it's just like, dear God, the whole point of this is that it's horrifying, and yet like we've merchandised the fuck out of RoboCop. And I don't remember if Starship Troopers was merchandised quite to that level. I mean, it certainly was, and I know there were video games that came out around it and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel like the bug in Starship Troopers is quite as culturally relevant as like the look of RoboCop, you know?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, the bug is not, it doesn't have the clean lines of like the xenomorph from Aliens or whatever. If, you know, I couldn't draw the bug from Starship Troopers, I'm pretty sure I could draw RoboCop or the xenomorph, for example. It's just, I think that was kind of intentional. You know, I think that he didn't want a charismatic horror movie monster.
Sure.
He wanted it to literally be disgusting, like a bug is. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I don't have any real wisdom to impart on this idea of like what, you know, if the filmmaker made satire that was too, you know, that went over a lot of people's heads, whose fault is that exactly?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't think Starship Troopers converted anyone to fascism. Like, I think it just sits there, and then, you know, maybe you revisit it when you're older and you're like, oh, I didn't understand this movie at all when I was a kid. but it's not like it hurt you. You know, I definitely watched a lot of other stuff that
Yeah.
wasn't intended to be satire, that just was military propaganda, basically.
Yes.
So how can this be worse than that, right?
Sure. I wonder if there exists someone out there that joined the army because they watched Starship Troopers. Surely there has to be one, right?
Yeah, there does have to be one who watched the co-ed shower scene and thought that was something
this is how boot camp works.
Yeah, this is extremely beautiful people and naked in the shower together. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. All right, Matt. So I don't know. I think we kind of moved on to how we're going to vote part of the show by kind of wrapping up our conclusions about this movie. But I couldn't in good conscience vote no on this movie. I just think it's absolutely excellent. And I think if you haven't seen it in a while, listeners, if you're listening to this and kind of being like, okay, I agree with what they're saying, but is it really that good? Revisit it. And I think you will surprise yourself.
I agree. I think when the movie was selected by the council, I was actually like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Starship Troopers? Like, if you're going to pick a Verhoeven movie, why Starship Troopers? Like, it's fine. But then having rewatched it, having noticed how much stuff I just like forgot about, or maybe never noticed in the first place because I was dumb. Yeah, really good movie. Better than I thought it was. And I think it deserves to be in the canon for all the reasons we talked about.
It is Verhoeven's favorite of his films.
Oh, cool.
He said that, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you would be voting for a director, a very good director who thinks this is the best movie he's made. So I think that just seals it right there, right?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. But you guys will have to vote yourselves. We are leaving the decision up to you. Matt and I don't get a vote besides the one that we get for being the people that put the poll up. We always click. There's always one. So you can go to our Patreon account, patreon.com/doofmedia right now and vote. Once again, you do not have to be a patron of us. This is a public post. Anyone can see the post, whether they are supporting us on Patreon or not. We open this up to everyone. So if you are not a patron, but you are really passionate about your hatred of Starship Troopers and you want to be like, no, you can do that. You can do that. And if you would leave a comment on the post, why you voted yes or no, we would love to hear it. We'd like to hear back from y'all, especially on these ones, because when it's a different opinion than mine, I really want to know what it is because I find it fascinating. So
yeah,
click the button, leave a comment, do all the good stuff. And if you don't want to leave a comment on the Patreon, you can just shoot us an email at doofmedia@gmail.com and we can read it there as well. All right. And we are still working on putting a list of all the movies that are in the canon together. I was supposed to do that last month, just like I said last month that I was supposed to do it the month prior to that, but I haven't done it yet, but we will get that done. So we will probably link that in the show notes as soon as it's done for our next episode. So look for that. It's going to be cool because it's going to be a cool list of movies that our council has nominated that y'all have voted on.
Awesome.
Doof. Okay, Matt, let's wrap up this episode by talking about Disney. You know that company? It's a little known company.
Little outfit
called Disney.
They make movies, I hear.
Yeah, so like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, this was their investor meeting, whatever, and they used it as a launch platform for a bunch of new stuff. So they announced everything across all of their properties. There was a bunch of Star Wars news. There was a bunch of Disney animation news. There was a bunch of Pixar news. There was a bunch of Marvel news as well. And I think before we get into the details of this, the thing that I want to make clear here is I think to me, it makes it very obvious that Disney's priority going forward is Disney Plus. That is what they are focused on. That is what they are doing. They are going to be releasing most of the things they are going to make on their streaming platform. That's the future. And that shouldn't surprise us, right? You own your own platform. It's one model of distribution. There's no middlemen. That makes sense to prioritize that.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean they're out of the theater game at all. And I think, last week we talked about WB's decision to put all their movies on their streaming service at the same time as theatrical. And we wondered if Disney was going to follow up with an announcement of a similar type. And they did not do that. In fact, the movies that they did announce, they seemed to specifically draw attention to the fact that is going to be out in theaters. Like they gave an announcement date for the long-awaited Black Widow movie, and they said only in theaters. They made a point to show it. So they are committed to the theatrical model, it seems.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think, you know, I still haven't sat down with like, you know, a spreadsheet and tried to make some back of the envelope calculations, which I think is what I've thought I should do a few times while having these conversations. Cause like, you know, the amount that it costs to make a show or you know, several shows is, you know, X dollars. And it's like, well, how many of those shows can you afford to make before you are no longer making money on your streaming service? And obviously the answer there depends on how many subscribers you have. And the answer to how many subscribers you have depends on how appealing that you've made it. And it seems to me like a lot of these streaming services, particularly Disney, I think, have basically decided our goal is to have, you know, 5 billion humans signed up for our streaming service, you know, at some point, right? And because if you have, I'm only slightly exaggerating, but like if you have, you know, 5 billion people signed up and you're charging them $10 a month, that's a lot of revenue, I believe. And so
yes, that is the math, correct.
But then, of course, you know, you can still make movies that you send to theaters, because those movies are going to make potentially $1 billion if you own all of the IP and you just keep cranking out the big tentpole blockbuster Star Wars and Marvel movies, and you know, if they get their strategy right on how to do that, which I think they've been doing very well for Marvel and very poorly for Star Wars, but they've made money either way, so I guess I can't complain too much. But I think there's no reason to prefer one over the other. I think it's just really obvious that they're really, you know, they're keeping both options open. Cool.
Well, I think they announced today that their subscriptions were up to 84 million, which is a whole lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. That's a lot of revenue.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about that is they don't even have that much stuff. I mean, that's the thing about Disney Plus, is as far as all this new stuff, there ain't that much. I mean, they're announcing a bunch of this stuff, but it's not out yet. There's no Marvel presence on Disney Plus yet. We have the one Star Wars show, and all the stuff is coming, but they've gotten to 80 million plus off just the back catalog of years and years of Disney stuff. So who knows how high this number is going to go? I think they got to their 5-year projections in 12 months. This is where they want it to be 5 years from now. So, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're going to be making, you know, $1 billion a month in revenue. And how much of that is just Mandalorian? You know, right?
Yeah.
So like they just have to have a few shows that everybody has to watch, and they'll be making $1 billion a month. More than that. It's going to be $2 billion. It's going to be $3 billion. It's going to be $5 billion, right? Like what stops it other than, I mean, like it's only $10 a month, right?
Sure. Here's what I need to happen. I need Congress to pass a law, which I know that's a bold ask in the day and age we live in, but I need them to make streaming services report their numbers in a controlled, reliable way. Cause like, you know, every once in a while Netflix will come out and be like, Queen's Gambit is the most watched thing on our platform ever. And I'm like, okay, but like, what are the numbers? You only tell me that when it's good news. Like,
right.
Because that's the weird thing, is like box office sales were such an not easy because it's still confusing, and there's whole people that devote their entire career to analyzing box office stuff, but it was a reportable thing that you could use to measure the relative success or failure of a release of a film. We don't know how many of the 80 something million people that are subscribed to Disney Plus are watching The Mandalorian. The Disney does, of course. I'm sure they have crazy kind of data analytics about all the watching habits of these people, that people are spending their full-time job pumping through that and analyzing it and reporting on it. But we don't know any of it. And I want to know some of this stuff. Yeah,
I mean, honestly, I can't blame them for not releasing it for a variety of reasons, one of which is that people like you and me don't get to armchair quarterback and second guess their decisions, and that's probably really nice for them.
But like, I don't. Let's be honest here. If Disney, if you're listening, we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I get I want to see the numbers too, just so that I can sate my curiosity, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, like I've watched every episode of The Mandalorian, and I watched 2 episodes of Queen's Gambit.
Still running on that too, huh?
Yep. And I'm like, how does that like how many people just watched the first episode of Queen's Gambit and then didn't watch any further? And then do they count that when they say it's the most watched thing ever? You know what I mean?
How many people watched the first 5 minutes of Queen's Gambit and said nope, and they count that as most watched ever?
Yeah, I mean, and they could just lie too, right?
right.
Yeah, I saw a very funny tweet, which I'm going to mangle in my attempt to recall it, but it was like everyone thought that streaming was going to be about, which platform can give you the most wide variety of options in terms of shows, and instead it's just Netflix saying, and now you will all watch The Queen's Gambit.
It's true. It's so true. And it was Tiger King earlier this year.
Yeah,
Tiger King.
That may have been the tweet. Yeah, but you now you're all going to watch Tiger King.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
Let's get into these new shows announced, though.
Okay, please do.
So I think the number is 7 to 10 new Star Wars shows coming in the next 4 or 5 years, which that's a lot, Matt. That's a lot of shows.
Shows?
Yes, Disney Plus shows series.
Okay, all right. I'm afraid, but
okay,
Mandalorian is good.
First one is called Rangers of the New Republic. This is actually done by Favreau and Filoni. So
that's going to be good.
It's set in the same time period as The Mandalorian, and I guess it'll be about Rangers of the New Republic.
Probably those 2 X-Wing pilots.
Yeah, I think it's going to be those guys. Yes, I would watch that. That'd be great. Next is Ahsoka, which is a show all about her. So they introduced her, and now we're going to do a show. Starring Rosario Dawson. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But like that's the thing is they're calling these things new original series, but what does that mean? Does that mean an 8-episode run and then we're donezo? Does that mean a 5-year series order? Like, and they can do whatever they want. They're not constrained by any of the normal, like what we would call a show, right? You do whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, it might mean that they make a season of all of them. They see which one people are watching, and then they curtail the ones nobody's watching. Or maybe they just keep making all of them and say, whatever, it doesn't cost that much money.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much money these things cost anymore.
Yeah. They're just increasingly just being like TV or like movies in their costs. So
yeah,
I don't know. Next we have Andor. Oh, Matt, haven't you always wanted to hear about Cassian Andor, the rebel from Rogue One?
Really?
Because he's getting his own show now.
All right. Okay.
And next after that is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I mean,
Ewan McGregor is back.
Okay, but
so is Hayden Christensen. He's back.
Holy shit! Why?
He's playing Darth Vader.
Is this real?
Yes.
Who's behind it? Who's behind this?
Oh, that I don't know.
Okay. If it's not Jon Favreau,
I don't think it's Favreau, but it's supposed to happen 10 years after the end of Revenge of the Sith. Ewan McGregor will be playing Obi-Wan again. And Hayden Christensen's there. Like the internet kind of blew up when they announced that Hayden Christensen was going to be back, because that's the big announcement that came today. Like we knew they were making an Obi-Wan show, and we knew that Ewan McGregor was involved. We did not know about Hayden Christensen. And like, I don't want to shit on this guy because like the dialogue he was working with in those movies was so bad. I don't want to blame him. But like, we do this weird revisionist history thing where now we're suddenly like, oh, I'm so excited for him to be back. Because
yeah, like why hasn't he been in any other movies?
Yeah, what's he been doing? I think he's like just been being a dad, I think.
Probably. Yeah.
The next one is an animated series called The Bad Batch. There's nothing. It's an anime. It looks kind of cool. I still want to go watch Clone Wars now that Mando made me like Star Wars again.
Okay.
So, but there's a new one coming.
Okay.
Then there's a thing called Star Wars Visions, an original series of animated short film that celebrates the Star Wars galaxy through the lens of the world's best Japanese anime creators. So I'm going to pass on that one.
I mean, it will probably be very visually interesting. It reminds me of, the original Clone Wars cartoon, which is what I thought the Clone Wars was for like 10 years before I realized that it was a different thing. But yeah, anyway.
Well, but wait till you see this new exciting one. The galaxy's favorite scoundrel, Lando Calrissian, will return in Lando, a brand new event series for Disney Plus. Justin Simeon is in the early stages of developing the project. Lando.
Okay.
He's back, baby.
All right.
Actually, Justin Simeon being involved, it makes me excited because he's pretty great. But I don't know. I can't get. See, this is when they're calling an event series, so that makes me think it's literally just going to be like a few episodes, and then they'll be done.
You know how in Moneyball, in the movie, they determined they looked at this. They just looked at the stats. They didn't. What I'm saying is, I think I should just start ignoring what they say the show is going to be and just pay attention to who's involved. Because if you had told me, I think probably you did tell me like a couple of years ago that they're making a Mandalorian Star Trek TV show about a guy who looks like Boba Fett. I think that I rolled my eyes so hard that I sprained something. But if I had just said, "Oh, Jon Favreau is in charge," say no more. Mm-hmm. And pushed all my chips forward on the table that we have here. I would have won that bet, right? Like, I think that's how to think about these things, because all of these things sound really stupid to me. I think it's all going to come down to who's in charge and a bunch of other details that are impossible to foresee.
That is fair. That is fair. But Matt, I'm not done yet.
Okay, please continue.
Because we have Leslie Headland brings a new Star Wars series to Disney Plus with The Acolyte. The Acolyte is a mystery thriller that will take viewers into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic era.
So this is the past, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Lucasfilm Animation is teaming up with Lucasfilm's visual effects team, Industrial Light and Magic, to develop a special Star Wars adventure for Disney Plus, a droid story. This epic journey will introduce us to a new hero guided by R2-D2 and C-3PO. So there's that one too. Matt, look, here's the deal. I like Star Wars. It's like chocolate cake.
Yeah.
It's so good. But this is too much cake.
Yeah.
This is a lot of cake.
I feel like they just tentatively, I was the scared, traumatized puppy dog from all the movies, and then they just coaxed me out of my little hidey hole with the Mandalorian, and and I'm licking the bowl of water they set out and looking around with very worried big puppy dog eyes.
Please don't let this metaphor go. Keep going.
And then like 10 clowns come screaming into the room saying, "Oh, the puppy's he's ready to play now." And I'm not ready to play now. I'm scared. I don't feel secure. I don't feel like you're going to be responsible with my Star Wars. Okay?
Matt, tell me more about the clowns.
One of them looks like the clone soldier. One of them looks like Ahsoka. I don't know. Ahsoka already kind of looks like a clown, so that's convenient.
All right. Well, we're done with the shows now, but there are movies coming out still. So the big announcement today, there were two big announcements. A brand new Star Wars feature with acclaimed filmmaker Taika Waititi is in development. So Taika Waititi making a Star Wars movie. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. That is cool. And he directed one of the Mandalorian episodes, so that's
yeah.
I'm excited about that. That's cool.
Also, Patty Jenkins, director of Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 1984, is making a movie called Rogue Squadron. I didn't know this about her. She actually, the way they did this announcement was pretty cool because she's like on an airfield rollerblading for some reason, and she's talking into the camera. And apparently, her father was a fighter pilot, and he died in on the line of duty. And so she's always kind of like been looking to make like the world's best like dogfighting movie, and she could just never find a story that she liked enough to do it. And so the sales pitch is here that like she really loves Star Wars, really loves dogfighting movies, and is going to make a Rogue Squadron movie. So
Okay.
I like Patty Jenkins. I think that could be cool.
Yeah. It sounds fun. That's a good ad anyway.
Yeah. Well done. So that's Star Wars, Matt. That was a lot of Star Wars stuff there. But Disney owns more than just Star Wars. Did you know that? Did you know that Disney owns more than Star Wars?
Okay. Well, I'm ready. Continue. I'm ready now.
I'm going to go through these things pretty quick. So Pixar is making a movie called Lightyear. It's a Buzz Lightyear origin story. Here's the deal, though.
Uh-huh.
It's not about the toy Buzz Lightyear. It's about the actual Space Ranger Buzz Lightyear.
Sure.
Yeah. And Chris Evans is voicing the voice of Buzz Lightyear, by the way. So they fired Tim Allen. They said, no more Tim Allen. We got Captain America.
Why would you fire Tim Allen? Tim Allen's great. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, but Tim Allen is he's kind of an asshole. He's an old dude. He's kind of a jerk.
Okay. All right, fine.
Maybe they just need a younger, more vibrant, more Captain America-y voice.
Sure. I mean, it'll be funny. I'm sure it'll be funny.
Yeah.
It's fine.
But Marvel.
Yeah.
Marvel. There's 7,000 new shows coming, Matt.
Okay.
You know about WandaVision, right?
I've heard of WandaVision.
Yeah.
I've heard of a few of these.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Have you heard of that one?
Heard of that one.
Okay. What about Loki? Have you heard of Loki?
I think I've heard of Loki. Yeah, I heard of Loki.
Okay. What about What If? Have you heard about What If?
Have not heard of What If.
What If is an animated series that's like it's literally just like based on a series of comments that's just like, what if something new and different? So I think in one of the ones they show off in the thing is, what if Captain America was actually Captain Britain, and it's actually what's her name, Agent Carter, who's gets the super soldier serum and becomes like Captain United Kingdom or whatever.
Awesome.
So it's just like one-off animated things, just exploring new, different, cool things.
Yeah, I feel like this is a concept from the comics where they would just do kind of random ideas. Yeah,
and it I think it looks pretty cool.
Okay.
So of course the Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is a movie that's coming out in 2021. They reaffirmed that it's wrapped filmmaking and they are going to release it next year. They are making a Miss Marvel series as well that's coming next year. And then we start to get into the new things here. There's a Hawkeye series coming out. There's a She-Hulk series coming out. There's a Moon Knight series coming out. These we knew about, but Secret Invasion is a series starring Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn from Captain Marvel, talking about the Skrull invasion thing. Also Ironheart, which is the movie about Ironheart is like a character in the comics right now that's like makes an Iron Man-esque suit. It's a character named Riri Williams that makes an Iron Man-esque suit. Armor Wars is the War Machine series that's coming. They're making a Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special that's coming. There's a Baby Groot show that's coming. Christian Bale is going to be in the Thor movie. I could keep going, Matt. You want me to keep going?
I mean, I'm already dead, so might as well.
They are making a new Blade movie. This was already announced. Mahershala Ali is going to be in a new Blade film. There's going to be a third Ant-Man. It's called Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Okay.
And Jonathan Majors is apparently going to be Kang the Conqueror in that. And I think people are speculating that Kang the Conqueror could be like the next big MCU villain. So that was announced. They also announced Black Panther 2 is coming out in a couple of years. Still written and directed by Ryan Coogler. But they are not going to be recasting the character of T'Challa. So I don't know what they're going to do. But Chadwick Boseman will remain at T'Challa. And I guess someone else will become the new Black Panther.
Yeah,
I guess.
Probably, yeah.
But the last thing, this is I think probably the biggest Marvel news of the day is that they are making a Fantastic Four feature film. John Watts, the guy who has directed all three of the new Spider-Man movies, is going to be directing that, and so that's coming. They didn't even announce when. Sometime in the future.
Okay.
So that was a lot of stuff, Matt. How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling like even if that was all really good, which it won't be, I'd never watch all of it. It's just too much.
Mm-hmm.
Which strikes me as kind of a problem. Like at a certain point, if even a diehard fan literally can't watch all the shit, then like you start to like lose that feeling of ownership. Because I've watched every Marvel movie, and so I feel like I'm a Marvel fan, right? But if I can't possibly watch all of it, how will I feel differently? And then of course some of it's going to be bad, and that kind of dilutes the brand, you know?
Sure. I mean, I think the important thing is that they're going to be releasing this stuff over the course of the next several years, right? So
Yes,
it's not
that's
going to
true.
just dump all at one time. They're going to stagger it. But I mean, it is a lot of stuff. What I hope, I mean, this is a problem with the comics, right? The barrier to entry to comic books is so high when like there's so many interconnecting stories and things that like, if you ask someone, okay, I want to read about Spider-Man, where do I start? And then they give you like 73 different comics that you have to read. That was a problem the comics have always had. And I hope that they don't fall into the same trap with this stuff. I think it would be very cool if the Marvel Cinematic Universe gets to a point where you don't need to see all this stuff. I mean, sure, they'd like you to, but like you don't need to. I felt like the MCU was very much, the stories were connected in a point that you really, really should have been watching all those movies. I would love if I just go, I don't feel like watching the Sam Jackson being Nick Fury again show, and I'm just gonna pass on that one, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I hope I think that's what their goal is here, because I do think I think they are, like, these people aren't stupid, right? There's a lot of money riding on this stuff, and I don't think they're just gonna shove cake down our throats and like say, no, you want this cake. They're gonna try to piecemeal it to us in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think through this. Like, if you have infinity dollars, which they do,
yes,
and you can just be like, let's just make a TV show for each and every one of the named characters in the MCU. Okay, and then you do that, and then you see which ones people like, and then you just kind of like pursue those, right? But the risk is that you've made a bunch of shit that nobody likes and that they make fun of, and then your reputation goes in the toilet, because instead of being the studio that made the Infinity Saga, you're the studio that made this ginormous pile of shit that nobody watches.
Yeah.
Like, that seems like a possible problem, like a possible future failure scenario.
I guess in my mind, one of the advantages of being TV, and I use that phrase loosely because it's just streaming stuff, is I feel like expectations in that regard aren't the same. And I feel like Marvel having 5 shitty TV shows in a row is way less brand damaging than Marvel having 5 shitty feature films in a row.
I agree with your intuition. It's hard to explain why exactly, but I think you're right.
So I don't know. I do agree with you that some of these things like are bound to not be that great. The Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, on the other hand, will be great. Because how could it not be?
Of course.
It's written and directed by James Gunn, man. That one's not coming out till 2022. So like they tossed the stuff way into the future, right? Some of the stuff is not coming out till we're like 80. So it's not, this isn't all coming at once. But yeah, I mean, it is certainly overwhelming when they just drop name after name after name after name. And that's kind of why I wanted to read them like this, because it's just, that's how it felt as I was watching this happen, is like new tweet, entirely new show in which Don Cheadle is playing War Machine again. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. You're like, I'm not going to try it out unless somebody tells me it's actually amazing. And then I'll be like, okay, well, maybe I'll try that out.
I think the one thing that comes from this all, though, is that the first Marvel Disney Plus TV thing we're getting is going to be WandaVision. It's coming this January. And I think with the news of all these announcements, it puts a lot of pressure on that show to be good, because it's going to set the tone for what Disney Marvel TV is going to be going forward. And I wonder if, I mean, obviously the show's done, right? Or just about done. The execs at Disney have most likely seen almost all of it, if not all of it already. I wonder if this shows that they have confidence in this thing that they're building, that like these first rounds of shows are really good, and they're happy with them, and they're like, okay, this is going to work. Let's go. Let's announce 5 years into the future because we're confident in this stuff.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, I remember back when we were frankly making fun of them for announcing all of the like Marvel Phase 1 movies and just being like, and it's like, nope, they made that work. So
the thing that we glossed over that we have to spend just a second on is Christian Bale in Thor Love and Thunder. Christian Bale playing the villain in a Taika Waititi movie might just be the most exciting thing you've ever experienced, Matt.
That's correct. Are you
very excited about that?
I'm very, very excited about that movie in particular, among all the other things that I'm somewhat excited about. Like, I'm pretty excited about the Doctor Strange movie, which I think has had some rough patches, but I'm still excited anyway.
Yeah, their director left, and they got a new one.
But I'm very excited about Thor Love and Thunder.
Mm-hmm. So. I don't know how excited I am about Loki. I don't know. We'll see what they do with it.
We just don't know anything about it. That's the problem with all of this is like, you tell me it's going to be a Loki TV show. Like I automatically imagine something. And the thing I imagine, I'm sure, is nothing like what they're going to do. So I might as well have had no information, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They did show some scenes from it for the first time today.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
So if you want to jump over to the Disney Twitter, you can see some shots from Loki. So
I will check that out because I'm curious about that at least.
Yeah. So man, we've got movies, but they're doubling down on this TV thing, and we'll see, man. I don't know. I'm hesitantly excited about all this stuff.
Me too. Me very more in the hesitantly, but yes.
Doof. All right. Do you want to talk about Mando before we go?
We can talk about Mando real quick.
Mando wrap up.
We have less to say about it this week, probably.
Yeah. So this was season 2, episode 6. So spoilers for that season. Matt, this is the first one this season that I really just didn't like at all.
Yep. It's not a good episode. I think that the dialogue, it was a very talky episode. It was poorly directed. It was directed by Robert Rodriguez, who I think somehow tricked everyone into thinking that he's a good director, but he's not actually.
Well, I don't want to shit too much on Robert Rodriguez because I heard this after you and I collectively chat on him together.
Okay.
He apparently was a last minute substitute. The director they had lined up to direct this episode had to drop out, and he stepped up and stepped in the last moment to do this. So while I agree with you that I think this is a poorly directed episode and I think the action is mostly bad, I'm kind of a little more lenient on him because he wasn't even supposed to be at work today. Okay.
Well, I still don't think he's a great director anyway, but
fair.
It's not a very good episode. There's kind of a lot of it's like a very lore heavy and talking heavy episode with a lot of stuff where I just didn't care, like a lot of kind of senseless action where there's just like people with guns charging a man with a stick and then getting their faces bashed in, and you're it's doing that thing where normally you never ask yourself questions like, why did the stormtroopers even bother wearing armor? Because it just doesn't matter, right? But it starts to matter when you show that even a stick can break through the armor, right?
No, to be fair, it was a stick with a little nubbin.
It's got a little nubbin. The nubbin is especially made to break through stormtrooper armor. It's probably made of hyper steel.
Yeah. Man, that armor just shattered though. When he smacked him on the head, it looked like plastic.
It's just obviously plastic. And you're like, oh, this looks fake to me. This looks bad.
I mean, the biggest problem for me is I just don't give a shit about Boba Fett. I just don't care about Boba Fett, and the show did nothing to make me care about Boba Fett. This was one of the first times where I really felt like the pre-knowledge of who the character is was required to get what they were doing, because like, who is this guy? Why is he here? Why do we care? And the answer to that question is because Boba Fett, and that's it. That's the only answer to that question.
Yeah.
And there's something I think they successfully avoided every other time they did this season, and I felt like with this character they didn't.
Yeah.
And
as far as I know, there's not even some canonical badass Boba Fett source. Like at least with Ahsoka, like if you don't know who Ahsoka is, the episode still works. If you have seen all of the Clone Wars stuff, it's even cooler because this is Ahsoka, right? But this is just like, it's Boba Fett, but nobody knows who Boba Fett is beyond the fact that he's a guy with a cool mask from the movies, and then I think he's in some comic books or something.
Yeah.
Where am I supposed to even have the association that Boba Fett is a cool badass other than the fact that he's got a cool mask and got his ass kicked in Return of the Jedi?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. No, it's just not a good episode. It didn't like sour me on the whole show or anything like that, but I was just like, oh, okay, this is like the first time I've been like decidedly disappointed by an episode.
I did enjoy seeing Baby Yoda throw some stormtroopers around with the Force. That was nice.
It was yeah.
Do you think they're going to do a dark side thing with Baby Yoda? Like, is Baby Yoda going to get tempted by the dark side? Do you think that's what's happening?
It's hard to imagine a baby even having the requisite levels of like hate and stuff like that. I don't want them to. And if they did, I feel like it would be kind of a transient. I feel like the tone of this whole show is lighthearted fundamentally. I mean, it's about the relationship between these two, characters who basically don't talk. And so the the palette of emotional places that you can take that to, I don't think that supports a dark Baby Yoda plotline, but I don't know, maybe.
I just imagining Baby Yoda in dark robes now, and it's really good.
Okay, well now I want to see it now that you've caused me to imagine it. So I hope that we do dark Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda shooting lightning.
We talked about this 2 weeks ago. Jesus, what is time? We talked about this 2 weeks ago. We talked about the fact that the show was eventually going to have to kind of lean more into the overarching serialized plot and less into the episodic this week's adventure plot, like as it moves towards the end of the season. We always predicted this was going to have to happen. And it started happening last week, and it fully committed to it this week. And I was just disappointed with that part of the show. I mean, like, it feels like they're doing like a Dirty Dozen type of thing, right? Like, I think they're just like, he's going to be collecting old friends to go get Baby Yoda back is what they're doing now, because he's got Boba Fett and the other girl and then that one girl, and then they're going to go get Bill Burr, who just still feels so out of place in this universe. I mean, I love Bill Burr, but he just feels so out of place in this universe.
It's Bill Burr, yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to go get him now, and they'll probably get the Jedi again. Like, it's just going to be like our Suicide Squad Dirty Dozen goes to free the Baby Yoda.
Yeah, probably get those Mandalorians from the other plot line, because they're going to want the Darksaber.
Yep. That's what's happening. And which is not to say that is bad. I think that could be good, but like in this episode, I was just not on board for the way they did it.
Yes. Just poorly executed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully
it could be good.
Hopefully tomorrow's is better. No more Robert Rodriguez. No more 30 stormtroopers getting killed by one person.
Yeah. I'm still looking forward to it despite the disappointment.
Oh yeah. I still love the show.
Yeah.
It's like one bad episode isn't going to turn me off on a show. I some of my favorite shows have absolute stinkers of an episode, but
fair. Yeah, fair.
All right. So that's it. Mando, new episode tomorrow. I think the penultimate one, right? How many episodes do these things have? I don't even know.
I don't know.
I think tomorrow is the 7th and therefore second to last. I think so.
Cool.
Mando. That's all we had for you folks. The music's so good. That's what we have for you guys this week. If you have any opinions on Mando, on the Disney Plus domination on Starship Troopers or on anything else at all, feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia. Also, don't forget to vote for Starship Troopers if you want it in the canon of great films or not. You can do that at our Patreon account. The link will be linked in the show notes of this very episode.
Yeah. And if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find this and all of our shows over at our website, doofmedia.com. That's where you'll find our game club, which is meeting this Saturday at 9:30 p.m. Every month, Ruben and Elliot will select a game, they'll play it, and then they'll meet up with you guys live on YouTube and chat about what they thought about it, if they liked it. They'll dive deep into the game a little bit. They're talking about Dark Souls this month. So if you're a Soulser, you can hang out with them and talk about why you like this game that I think is just awful. This is a terrible game.
Yeah, Soulser. That's what they're called.
If you like what we do here and want to support us, please consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia while you are voting and maybe sign up to support us. If you want to be a member of the council, if you want to be part of the group that chooses what movies we talk about once a month here, you can do that. So you just go over there. You'll see we just recently redid our tier, so it's very, very easy to follow. No confusion. So you can just see exactly what you want and which rewards you'll get at that level. And you can sign up, support us. Each and every dollar that you guys donate to us goes right back into the company, keeps the lights on, keeps the mics miking.
Yep. Charged.
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done. That's my pitch.
Also, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast, except for that last bit, on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
No, I want you to specifically rate that last bit and give it 5 stars.
2 separate reviews, one for the show in general and one for that last bit.
All right, folks, we're done. We are finally done. Next week on the show, we are heading back to our Deconstructing Del Toro movie series, and we're going to be looking at the only film in this series not penned by the director. We're going to be talking about Blade 2 next week. We'll see you then.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.